And when I say homes instead of houses, that's because I really want to drive home the point that for a long time people lived in these. You know, they contributed to their neighborhood, they contributed to their community. And now these houses just sit empty, you know, attracting, you know, a bad element. Shopping carts, theft, you know, needles, disrepair. You know, there's no running water in these, but yet people still live in them. So I thought using that model that other great institutions in Portland have used, what if we took these bank-owned vacant foreclosures and turned them into community outposts? Now it's really important that we revisit the vernacular that we use when we talk about these things. This is not a homeless shelter. This is a community outpost where we for years we've been doing outreach in the community through our garage project. We're a 7-day-a-week donation drop-off spot, and then we give to other outreach agencies which give to the streets. We've run a political campaign out of this foreclosure, and for a long time we've housed homeless people in our backyard. But now, while I have a tiny little bit of political presence left, I think it's important that I use it to get this message out moving forward about real solutions. Shelters aren't real solutions. You know, the only reason for having a shelter is so that you don't get eaten by a lion in the middle of the night. That's what a shelter's for. You're never going to get a job out of a shelter. Your family's never going to climb out of poverty by living in a shelter. But if you could find a safe spot to sleep where you knew that nobody was going to come and assault you on the side of the road in the middle of the night, or where if you needed to sleep a little extra one day, you know, to recover, you know, a little bit of sanity, a little bit of normalcy is all people need to get up, you know. And then we talk about transitional housing, and it's not just about moving somebody from the streets into housing. What about the other way of transitional housing? What about the people that are sleeping in a doorway right now that have $2,000 in their sock? But they're an economic refugee and they can't find anywhere to live. I mean, there's nowhere to live, you know, and the application fees, you know. And so then you think about a good model, like I have, because, you know, I'm an idea guy, and you think, so that plot of land that they were just negotiating over off of 93rd and Woodstock, you know, that was $500,000 that sold for the next day. And that plot of land was next to a freeway, next to the Max, next to a busy street with no trees, no amenities. There's an outhouse.
Who owns this place?
That's a great question. Who owns this place? Well, originally a woman named Jamie owned it, and she vanished off the face of the earth. The loan went into default. The loan went to back to Chase Bank. Chase Bank sold it back to themselves a couple times. There was another group involved. Now Fannie Mae technically owns it. But I mean, that's technically, you know, that's in the eyes of a corrupt law and a corrupt legislation that works against the communities. If you ask the native people who owns it, you know, they would tell me I have permission to be here. You know, the tribes would bless this project. You know, and contrast that spot and the spots that the city is so fond of putting people in, you know, over there on Greeley next to the train tracks, or in the polluted industrial area over by OMSI, or on the side of the freeway there off of Woodstock, and they now contrast that with what I can offer for $200,000. Look at all these beautiful trees. Look at the squirrels, the chickens. Here are the crows, the raspberries. There's a garden. There's running water here. There's electricity. There's 2 bathrooms, 2 showers, washer and dryer, Wi-Fi, all the skills. I pay for it. I pay for it all. I pay for it. I mean,
but you don't pay mortgage, right?
I don't pay a mortgage. That's it.
So you live here for free.
But guess what? We bailed out Fannie Mae. Fannie Mae owes us. I don't owe Fannie Mae anything. My neighborhood doesn't owe Fannie Mae anything, okay? That's a deal between the government, a corrupt government, run by corrupt people that wants to let these houses sit. How often do you think they talk about the banks at the debates? All these mayor candidates that want to run your city.
See, that's the linkage that he makes that everyone believes in.
Hold on, you
This
can't
linkage.
interrupt news articles.
Oh, I'm sorry, but it's frustrating because you're not making the linkage to the corporate reality that makes our communities decline.
Can't heckle a news interview.
I know, I'm a journalist, I'm just asking questions. I hear what you're saying, I hear you. How would this work? How could we make it happen?
How would this work? So there's several ways we could work. The city could, first of all, the city needs to legalize backyard camping. I mean, that's one of the worst rules that we have right now, you know. If people were able to pick up 1 or 2 or 3 people each for their backyard and give them a sense of normalcy and safety, we could do that. So we could go through land trusts. We could do that. There's a lot of talk about land trusts these days. There's eminent domain. The county or the city could declare eminent domain on these banks. They would do it to build a new mall. They would do it to expand a college. You know what I'm saying? But they won't do it to stop homelessness. They just want to keep throwing money at the same poverty pimp organizations.
Do you think the banks would do it without a fight?
I think that there's ways to leverage. You know what I'm saying? You know, city leadership.
How could
that's
we
why
make it attractive for the owners? I guess is what I'm saying. How could
Well, okay,
what
the
would
banks,
best
the
interest
banks,
in the bank?
the banks could be getting tax breaks for doing this. The builders that build these, you know, after you build a certain number of houses in a year, you get taxed at a secondary rate. Perhaps instead of elevating that tax bracket, you could go back if you donated one house to these kind of projects. So these are more than just homeless. You know, in the old days, we used to have these things called block homes. If you were scared, if you were on your way home from school and a stranger was following you, you go to a block home. We don't have those anymore. Our neighborhoods are destroyed, and one of the biggest reasons our neighborhoods are destroyed is because of all these vacant zombie homes that sit here empty. And you know what? This might not be the answer. And this might not be legal, but I do a lot of stuff that's not legal. They told me I couldn't sleep under the sequoias because they belonged to Vic Remmers, and I did it anyways, and we saved those trees, and that led to a change in the tree code. They told me I wasn't allowed to stay at the reservoirs, and that it was illegal, and we did it anyways, and we saved those reservoirs on Mount Tabor, and we led to a change in the way that the Water Bureau now operates with the reservoirs. You know, just because an unjust law is in the books doesn't mean you have to follow it. That's the problem with this world. Nobody will stand up. You know, the city is being destroyed at an incremental level so that we don't even barely notice, right? The frog in the pot analogy. Somebody has to stop, slam on the brakes, pull the lever, and say, listen, enough is enough. And if I have to take the hit, if I have to be the one that everybody calls a freeloader, if you knew what I do in this community, you would never call me a freeloader in a million years. You know? Thank you. Solidarity. Somebody has to be the one. I did this before the campaign. I'll do this after the campaign. It's just nice to have a little bit of a platform where more people are listening, and I have the ear of whoever the next mayor is going to be a very close personal friend of mine. And so it's time for bold leadership. Whether I win the election or not, I will still provide the same leadership I've been providing for over a decade in the city. And this is an example of it. So these tents right here, ideally will turn into small homes. But I don't want to make that kind of investment in some place that I'm not secure in living, right? But who knows? It could be another 3 years before that.
Black home, like they used to be.
Yeah. So the evolution of housing starts with a sleeping bag. Then a sleeping bag moves to a sleeping bag and a tarp. Then it moves to a sleeping bag, a tarp, and a tent. Then you go to a sleeping bag, a tarp, a tent with a tarp on top. Then you get a platform. And now that's when things really start to change. Now you have a platform, now you're off the ground. Then you get a chair and you get a little tomato plant, a pea plant. But then you gotta build. People don't need to be living in tents. People damn sure don't need to be living in shelters. We have solutions, we have the money, we have the brains, we have the resources. I'm just the idea guy. It's gonna be somebody else's job to figure out how this works into a land trust or how the city could declare eminent domain. But I'll tell you this, I'm not gonna go another day pretending that we don't have a problem. I'm not gonna go another day pretending that I don't have a solution to that problem. And so once again, I'm gonna go around the city cashing checks with my butt that my mouth wrote. That's what I do.
Never heard that one before. Have you talked to any of the mayoral candidates about this?
Yeah, in fact, several of them are running late and they're supposed to be here. But, you know, it's busy. It's one day before
I know.
One day before the election.
Notice that timing on that.
Yeah, so no, all the other candidates are absolutely behind me.
Really?
Yeah.
Which ones?
All of them. Well, not
Really?
Jules, because me and Jules hate each other.
I was gonna say, I can't
Not Jules. But Jules would still support this. I guarantee you would support this. I still talk to these people all the time. We've all become close friends. And I know by their vision of a diversity of tactics and this being one piece of a bigger puzzle. There is no panacea. As Jules likes to say, there is no silver bullet. But Like a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here. If we all bring one piece of the puzzle, you know, we
Sorry.
understand that intentional communities work. We know they work from Hazelnut Grove. We know they work from Right to Dream 2. We know that when given the opportunity, people will return to housing. But you're never gonna return to housing out of the shelter.
Does Right to Dream 2 have platforms?
No, we're on the ground.
I was gonna say.
We fancied it up a little bit.
I think we have everything we need.
I think so, too.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you for. Really don't have to ask too much.
Sorry,
But,
I give this
but
speech all the
obviously
time.
that is the question that everyone's asking is how would this potentially work? So.
You know, and I'm basically asking people to tell me how it will work. I thought you were gonna give me a hug. I was like, do you
I
have a
usually
business
don't
card,
hug it
though?
out now. Yeah, I do in
Let
the
me
car.
grab you one.
Yeah.
I'll meet you out.
All right.
I'll walk you guys out your car. Actually,
I think
if you
he's just gonna get some shots of the
okay, well then let me get you a Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you're out here. Did you like to discuss how good
How you doing?
James.
I'm Bob. Nice to meet you.
This is Kaylin.
Hello.
Hello. So there's the chickens. So each platform with a tent has flowers, has a chair, a tent, tomatoes, and a little cool statue.